Okay. Okay. So now we've set up the dates, right? And we got the theoretical dates and the actual dates. Now, basically, interest is going to accrue from t sub j minus 1, so t sub j is going to be paid on the actual date. Now the question is, do you accrue interest from the theoretical date to the theoretical date and pay it on the actual date? Or you accrue interest from the actual date to the actual date and pay on the actual date? Okay? It's not that big a difference, because if I accrue from theoretical, and pay it on the actual, that means maybe this day's payment's included in the next payment or the preceding payment, but all the days get paid somewhere. It's just which payment they're part of. Well, if the swap leg is adjusted, that means interest accrues from actual date to actual date and paid on the actual date. If the swap leg is unadjusted, the interest accrues from theoretical date to theoretical date and is paid on the actual date. And by default, swap legs are adjusted. Okay, but that's usually on the confirm, even though it doesn't need to be. Okay, finally, is how much gets paid. Well, the payments are always of the same form. They're always the day count fraction times some nominal interest rate, 7.2%, times the notional, $100 million. Okay, paid on the jth actual pay date. Okay. Okay, but what is this alpha, right? This day count fraction. Well, alpha is official fraction of a year for the jth interval from t sub j minus 1 to t sub j. Okay? So how do you decide what the official fraction of a year is? Well, every interest rate payment and every deal in the world has a day count basis. And the day count basis is an official way of finding out what the fraction of a year is between any two dates. The most common one is Act 360, also known as the money market basis. And that one is very easy. The day count fraction is the number of days divided by 360. And so yes, there's more than 1 year per year. So this is used by most floating legs in the world. It's also probably used by your credit card company, which you knew they're out to screw you, right? So not too big of a surprise. But most floating legs basically use Act 360. The exception is Britain and many of the former British colonies. They tend to use Act 365, which is just the number of days divided by 365. It's used for both fixed and floating legs in Britain and many of the former colonies, British colonies. Canada's some of the exception. They go Act 360 like the US half the time, and Act 365 like Britain. And finally, this brings us to the 3360s, also known as the bond basis. This is introduced to make our jobs simpler, right? Just like the simplifications of the US tax code. Okay. So in 3360, the numerator is 30 times the number of complete months plus the number of leftover days divided by 360. Well, that sounds all well and good, but what happens if this gives you 31 days in one of the months, right? Or what happens about February 28th? Do you make exceptions? Okay, well, I'll show you on the next slide exactly what the algorithm is. But before I continue, I should say that there's over 80 of these day count bases that I counted in Bloomberg once. It's not important to know all these day count bases. All you have to know is that each interest rate of every deal is going to have a day count basis. It's probably going to be Act 360 for floating legs and some form of 3360 for fixed legs. My favorite day count basis is Brazil's, right? It's business days divided by 252. So yes, you do not get paid interest on the weekend. Look, you're off enjoying the beach on the weekend. Your money's off enjoying the beach on the weekend. No problem, dude. Okay, so there's over 80 of these, okay?